Well, I do want to say it's not exactly an herb, but there was definitely extra importance around the morning coffee. And my neighbor upstairs and, me and my partner and do you have the coffee? Who's got the water? And we came together.
The first herb I reached for was Milky Oats, Avena sativa. One near and dear to my heart. People in North Carolina who were using it as cover crops, and I'd be like, what are you going to do with those Milky Oats that are forming?
Well, to sound like a broken record, Milky Oats.
Driving around looking at communities is a shock. Driving around looking at your favorite place in nature and patch of forest, swath of forest, favorite trail, it's not the same, and it won't be for 125 years.
I think I, too, kind of similar to what you were saying, found solace in the slowness and simplicity of life. Cooking on a camp stove, living by candlelight. And all of a sudden, I'm not being berated by text messages, work emails, whatever it might be. I could just be.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer, and I'm one of the hosts of the Stories from the Earth podcast, a podcast about connection in this disconnected world. Today, we are going to be discussing a little storm that went by the name of Helene. We are having a panel at the Appalachian Herb Collective free herbal clinic. We're upstairs at the French Broad Food Co-op in Asheville, North Carolina. It's been a few months since the hurricane, and it was really hard to get together and chat before because we were all dealing with a lot. But now we can finally come together and chat after things have sort of settled down a little bit.
My name's Jeannie. I'm director of redmoonherbs.com. We've been in business about 30 years, and we do things the wise woman tradition, which goes back many centuries, but we prefer to use wild weedy herbs over things that are harder to find and things that just grow right around us. I'm also a volunteer at AppalachianHerbCollective.com. We started up after the storm hit, and it was just evolved, and it keeps evolving, and it's a beautiful thing. And who knows what tomorrow will bring, but we hope it's around for a long time.
Hello, my name is Christina Bertelli. I'm a clinical herbalist. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and I was here for this storm, Helene, and I started to just show up, give whatever I could, and volunteer with the Appalachian Herb Collective. It's been a very nourishing journey.
Hi, I'm Devin Kelly Mott. I am a community herbalist who's lived in Asheville for quite a while, and one of the founding volunteers of the Appalachian Herb Collective. We are 5 months post Hurricane Helen, and we've been doing some really incredible work here on the ground. I feel like we must have had over 50 free herbal pop-ups, herbal clinics at this point. We are managing 9 hubs throughout Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, and we've really just been helping a lot of folks the best that we can. I also do have a tiny little herb company here in Asheville, Apothecary, and you can find me on Instagram at Apothecary Herbals.
Hi, I'm Melissa Fryer. I born and raised here in Asheville, seen a lot of floods, have never seen or experienced anything like this. It's been a real gift to serve not only through the co-op, the French Broad Food Co-op, but also within the Appalachian Herb Collective, and to consistently assess everyone's needs post-storm. I think it's going to continue to be a journey in that. I'm happy to be here, happy to work with all these wonderful women, and yeah.
The storm happened differently for sort of everybody. Everyone had different experiences. Would everyone like to sort of briefly chat about your Helene experience? A short story on your experiences in the first couple of maybe hours or a couple of days after the storm hit?
Okay, so for myself, my experience was in many ways very, very blessed and very lucky. I didn't have any tree fall on my house or even nearby. just a ton of wind and rain, and ultimately the septic, what do you call it? It overflowed, and we had major issues there. And so, like everyone, I was in it's extreme, but you kind of minimize it when you know everyone was going through it, had no power, no water, but we couldn't turn on any of the water. So no flushing, no electricity, no cell phone service, so no connection with any of the outside world, including, your family elsewhere, but also just news. It took a while before we started realizing we could turn the radio on in our car. That was how we started getting information, and then just coming out and talking to the neighbors, which I know was a beautiful, beautiful thing. I haven't been in my neighborhood that long, so that, from waves to let's check in on each other's status and safety, and that created a bond that won't ever go away between myself and my community and my neighbors. And we were blocked on our road like many other people. There was a tree that fell and blocked our ability to leave. So a lot of people came together to cut a way out of someone's yard, and it was just such a mixed bag of emotions. The connection emotions, you're seeing this community, and my friend upstairs comes down every morning and we're having coffee, and there's just more of a tribe and a collective for daily life. And ultimately, I must say that combined without any cell phone service created like a throwback in time that made me access a primal experience I was really relishing, and that I was able to sink into that I didn't have my house wash away, and I didn't know yet how bad it was elsewhere. So that was really an interesting experience that I felt like, take note of this, and how can I bring that into my life more once the technology all comes back. That was a big part of my experience, was observing that, and then you kind of get to how are our local friends and family? We have to find out. And so there was a need and an urgency to get out and find out. So that was the next order of business. And on that journey, I went and walked my partner's property and encountered quite a thing for myself. I had ticks all over my body, where you couldn't see any skin. It was just black with ticks. I think that maybe has something to do with the storm and the loss of their nest, a stirring up in some way of the animal life and insect life. So then I blew up in blisters and had kind of a medical situation that I had to figure out how to address, and everything's closed. And so that was my personal layer of OMG, what am I going to do, and how do I get out of here and just take care of my body. And so that added a level of emergency, and I did leave for a few days. And then that was interesting because there was this juxtaposition of relief space, but also I felt so disconnected from what for me was real life, what was going down back home, and everyone else, in Raleigh are do, and I just couldn't handle being away. So I had to come back and, check back in on friends and just try to be with the process here, as hard as it was to be here. So that's my story and my experience. And then moved more into connecting with this group, which has been very medicinal.
My personal experience with the storm was I did get cut off from the outside world for a couple of days. Fortunately, my kiddo lives in the downtown Asheville area and let me borrow their car. And so I was able to get out. Because the storm was harder than we thought it would be, a lot of folks had not gathered up water or even to drink, not just flushing, And so my family lived down east the first couple of days. I didn't have cell signal, and I was just openly cooking on my fire or outside, and it was it was a throwback, wasn't it? Because I'm okay, I'll just throw some campfire out and get a piece of cast iron and eat something from the freezer that's thawing out. So it was really fun. I felt kind of on an island by myself. I checked on my octogenarian neighbor, and we made coffee together on an open fire, and I'd take my coffee press over and drink with her. And she's like, well, I've got a few things in the freezer. We'll just put we'll keep the fridges closed and have the rest of this creamer, and we might have a cookie together or something. She's a good baker. So we got to bond, and so thank goodness my kiddo came along to check on me, and when I saw her, I did burst into tears, because it was like, because I didn't know how she was. Her and her friends had walked along the railroad tracks, and they were just shocked at how high the water was. They were in the River Arch District walking, and just things floating by. They felt like it was a whole nother planet. It was just, and she did send me a photo later of a couple of the shots. But because there were several people that, friends and family, that I was thinking, well, they need drinking water. We drove through town, and you could see people gathering in parking lots, so we stopped to get a little signal. And so 48 to 72 hours later, I said to my family, we're okay, because they didn't know. My family, I grew up down east in central North Carolina, and they rallied around quietly and put together food, gasoline, tons of water, first aid supplies. Show up a few days later, shock me. We put it in the Church of the Holy Basil at Red Moon Herbs so that neighbors and friends and family could share. But my sister and brother-in-law knew someone was coming up here to rescue their kiddo whose car flooded in Brevard and the house flooded. She walked to a shelter with her dog. The shelter wouldn't take her. But this lady who was volunteering said, no, you're coming home with me. She was soaked. So her dad came to visit her, and he said, can you get to Airport Road? I've got gasoline for you and water. And I got there by borrowing the neighbor's gas. Got gas so then I could take some water to various people, because fortunately Red Moon wasn't affected. I think the power came on out on west easier than downtown. It was kind of like Christina said, it was a bringing together of people, like a throwback, and wow, you really get to know your neighbors. It's really, and so right away I wasn't thinking herbs, herbs are supportive, but people need water and food and clothes and shelter. So everybody's focus was there. And shout out to Myco Herb Collective for really just hustling and getting some things together. That's Sister of Mother Earth and Twin Flower Botanicals. Mars Hill was not as affected as Marshall and Yancey and Burnsville and other areas around it. So they were able to get going quicker. And then we started chatting with them, and things just rolled from there. And thank you to Twin Star Lupo for really getting the ball rolling as a group. And I feel like it's my calling to do this, mutual aid in a bigger way from now on.
Well, my experience was like a lot of lucky people's, is that I had when the storm came in, it was scary and windy, but it was just another storm. We flooded a lot. You live here a long time, and I've seen dumpsters float down the French Broad, right? But for me, I had no sense. Like, I got up on Monday and was coming into work like normal, because that's what you do. And then people were like, yeah, no. So there's nobody here. I didn't panic until the Tuesday after, right? Because I was like, I'm a prepper type person. I got extra food. I got 10 gallons of water. I'm fine. That's me and my hound dog. We're good. And then it hits you I have a quart of water left for me and my dog. Oh, God. And Jeannie actually saved my butt in the early days of every time I saw her, she's like, hey, got a jug of water? and I'm still doing that. It makes you super grateful. I've lived here all my life. I was born and raised. My great-grandparents grew up here. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of, natural disasters. But this, you can watch drone coverage. You can watch news and everything, and it just does not prepare you to go through some of these areas. Going through Swannanoa was just so eerie. Like, you can feel the trauma of the place. You can feel the trauma of the people. Your mind scrambles to go, there are 4 houses, and then where the 5th one is just gone. Like, why that one? You can't understand what you're seeing, I think, in so many ways. And the co-op was really great. I mean, we had so many amazing sponsors, like produce suppliers like Happy Dirt sent us pallets of water to give away to customers and to our staff so that we had things to drink. There was just so much goodness that came, and it was I think it was World Kitchen was the first people here. They were like day 2 or 3. Everyone else, before FEMA hit, before all these other groups hit, which I'm so grateful for, I'm not ditching them, but people here came together in communities like I hadn't seen in probably since my childhood in the 70s and 80s, right? And I did want to mention one of the saddest things that happened. I watched this through neighborhood. My son was gathering, water out of creeks and bought a bunch of, buckets to give to neighbors and stuff. People were cooking together. It was amazing. And the minute internet was back, it died. It wasn't when we got electric back. It wasn't when the water started, it was internet, which is so sad because, a lot of people believe that the internet is kind of what's supposed to keep us connected in today's world, right? Especially since we're so global and we have friends all over. It just immediately everybody went back to their corner. And for me, it's been a constant unfolding. So you went through that original trauma where you're kind of like grateful that you don't have internet, but panicked because where are your people? And we forget that, like, I have to remind myself, I didn't have a cell phone until my 30s. I got this. I'm going to be okay, right? But it doesn't feel like that anymore because we're so connected and needing. We forgot what it was like to say, oh, I know somebody's phone number, or I can walk over or drive over or whatever. That's been a little bit heartbreaking, but also just the trauma of the land for me is so challenging, and that's not separate from the trauma in our bodies, right, and the trauma in ourselves. So I think a lot of us are still just going through that. I know that even in the past 2 months, like, we're at month 5 now, 3 months in, driving by and going, what? And just being breathless, from what you're seeing and trying to process of, oh wow, you can see the water lines in these stores that went almost up to the 2nd story, and wow, how does an 18-wheeler get upside down in the Swannanoa River, this tiny little river, right? So I think there's still so much trauma to process, and I still see places like the first time I drove through Biltmore, the first time I drove through Old Fort or Swannanoa, just on my way or even out to Madison County, and just seeing these huge swaths of trees just gone, 80% of them in this little section is just gone. So that's kind of been my experience, and it's hard because we're, sometimes doing the next right thing saves your ass, right? Like, you just keep doing the next right thing and you don't get consumed by the trauma, but it's still being felt out. We're all still having these glitches. And interestingly, the last time it rained was the first time I didn't panic. And then woke up to stories of, Tennessee and Kentucky and Virginia flooding. And I'm just like, wow, all of us have this deep-seated funk and trauma from it. So I think it's going to take a while to, even define what is normal. What is our new normal? People say this was a geological event. The land is forever changed. Our psyches are forever changed, with what we went through and fear of where are our people and people who lost people who lost their homes. Our homes are sacred. That's where we're safe, right? The earth can move under you. It's just this interesting thing after a pandemic that we're trying to find that community together and find, I know personally, we want a little bit of ease. We want a little bit of comfort from each other. And I do love volunteering with HC in that realm of bringing comfort to others. And it may not seem like a lot, but it's huge, to like, here's a blend to calm and soothe, or to help you sleep, or, for your gut or whatever. I think back to my granny and I wonder, like, what would she think of this? We saw floods, but nothing like this. I mean, there's still areas where people aren't accounted for. They still haven't found bodies. I couldn't have imagined a storm of this magnitude, and how one place can be virtually untouched and the next 2 miles away decimated. Yeah, that's my story so far. And then dealing with the public and in it, people are dropping their baskets. It's a lot to carry for all of us, and I think it's just gonna take a lot of love and support, and I don't know what else. My plan is to be the crazy old woman who plants trees. They say we lost 40% of our trees, so I just want to plant trees. Gather acorns and hickory nuts and walnuts and red buds and just plant trees.
Okay, so thinking about those early hours after the storm hit and those early days, the first thing that comes to mind for me is just how little we knew at that point. I think so many of us were used to some roads flooding around Asheville and, the French Broad running through the River Arts District. I always know not to take one road when it's rained heavily, but this was different, and I think it took quite a while for us all to really realize how different it was. The morning of the storm, that Friday morning, I woke up very early to intense wind, some of the strongest wind I have ever heard. Then it was trees going down. And I live in a basically glorified yurt, a little roundhouse with not insulated windows. That thing could go down any day. It was scary. The trees were going down. There's really just an area of forest surrounding my house. And luckily, the closest one fell probably 6 feet from my place. And it was just me and my partner in bed holding each other, just hearing one tree after another going down. And even still, at that point, strangely enough, the only thing on my mind was that one of my best friends was getting married that day, and I was in the wedding. And so I was just waiting. I think there's the initial shock and just that we didn't truly know how bad it was yet. But I was just thinking, okay, once these winds die down, I'm going to Leicester and I'm going to be in a wedding. So hours later, winds died down. It started raining less, and I ventured out. That's when it really hit me. It was almost impossible to leave my neighborhood. I live in North Asheville, and so it wasn't the flooding that hit my neighborhood, but the trees. The wind really did a number, and these tornadic winds. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I was driving under downed trees, around downed trees. Merriman Avenue was just full of some of the biggest trees I've ever seen in my life, because you don't understand how big they are till you see them down. So normally it would take me probably about 15-20 minutes to get from my house to Leicester for this wedding. It took me 2.5 hours. And I just kept going. And everywhere I went, it was destruction. And there were cars on the road, but it was like a dream or a nightmare in the sense that everybody's moving slowly. There's no eye contact even happening. We're all just taking in, what is this? And I wasn't able to actually drive to the wedding venue because so many roads were blocked. So wound up trudging with my bridesmaid's dress and a whole bunch of things through horse pastures and cow fields, probably about 1.5 miles, 2 miles. Finally got there, and of course I find out the wedding isn't happening that day. But shout out to Chrissy. I'll make it to your wedding no matter what. I think for me, I was probably mildly dissociated, still didn't understand what I was experiencing. I think for me it was that second day, Saturday morning, that I woke up and realized, okay, we have no water, there's no cell service, there's no electricity, still. Don't know how long this is going to last. I got to find my people. Definitely there was the water scarcity element as well. So I only had probably a quarter tank in my car, and I drove out. I went far and wide to find my people, and I feel very grateful that everybody was okay. All my loved ones were okay. But I remember trying to get gas, and there was a line of probably 100 cars down Merriman. And eventually, after sitting there for an hour, we realized there's no gas, and we're all just sitting here. And we realized that by starting the beginnings of that real sense of community. We're getting out of our cars because nothing's happening. We're talking to each other. I spoke with this young woman who was there with her kids in a minivan. She'd been waiting probably 5 hours to fill up her tank because she was completely empty. And I had some water in my car, and so gave her some water. That was just the beginning. From there, it was these glimpses and tiny micro moments of just this new level of connection that I truly think just doesn't happen anymore. And I do think that internet piece, that technology piece, is a huge, if not the hugest part of it all. So yeah, everything was moving at such a different kind of pace then. I think I too, kind of similar to what you were saying, found solace in the slowness and simplicity of life. Cooking on a camp stove, living by candlelight. And all of a sudden, I'm not being berated by text messages, work emails, whatever it might be. I could just be. And in those first couple days, despite the stress and the not knowing, I read more books front to back than I have, I'm talking storybooks, fiction, juicy fiction, than I have in years. And that felt really good. In some ways, it feels strange to reflect on that part of it, that, there was something really to be gleaned from that level of disconnection. And the ensuing connection that we were able to experience with the people around us. And gosh, from there, I feel like that's the initial phase, those first couple days of shock. After that, you see free food popping up on every corner. All of our favorite restaurants all of a sudden are cooking whatever they had. I was eating pretty great at home because all the salmon in my freezer was going to go bad. So I had to cook it all and eat it for every meal. And yeah, just this resource sharing. And it was really a beautiful and heartbreaking thing to experience.
I just have to say, and when you're talking about going to the wedding, I tried to go to work. Work was like, okay, so there's a storm and we're going to close on Friday and you guys will just work on Saturday. And I'm like, to make up. And I'm like, really? Are you sure we're going to be able to get to work? But I tried to go in because I couldn't get to my boss. I couldn't connect with anybody because the cell was down. And I was like, am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get in trouble if I don't show up? But it's silly because obviously no. So we live in Canton. We were hit less, if you weren't by the river, we were hit much less hard than Asheville. So I was able to get to Patton Avenue. There were no lights working. I couldn't get to my work because there were massive trees down. And at that point I was like, I'm going home. But it's really funny how your brain is sort of still set in the same. It takes it a minute for it to realize and adjust because you're still on regular mode. I think that all happened to us. And we're like, oh, we're not there anymore. I just wanted to say that. All right, guys, it's time for the herb quiz. Woo! Something new we're starting right now.
So cue your prompt.
Soft furry leaves like velvet green, bell-shaped blooms in purple cream. Old healers swore I sped the mend, I help what's broken find its end. What am I?
All right, guys. It's super late at night, and I realized that I forgot to give you what A, B, and C meant. And if you're watching this video, you can see my little cute little nightlight, this little light up ghosty. It also has a couple modes. Ooh. Anyway, you can change the color on it. A is rosemary, B is comfrey, and C is lamb's ear. So just guess A, B, or C. And a hint is herbalists long call me something like knit bone because I was used to help wounds and broken bones heal. My botanical name starts with S-Y-M. Think together. All right, just pick A, B, or C. Leave it in the comments of this video. You can comment on Spotify. You can comment. We have a post on our Instagram page. To win some great swag. This is the swag box. A sticker sheet. Woo! Buttons. Lots of buttons. Oh my gosh, too many buttons. Buttons. Who's got buttons? We've got magnets. We got more magnets in here. Magnets. Stickers. Lots of stickers. We even have like these weird charm thingies. Yeah. Okay. I've got bookmarks. The bookmarks are a work in progress. And if you win, not only do you get awesome swag, but you get entered into the big drawing at the end of the year, end of 2026, which will have hopefully a lovely handmade mug, which I don't have a picture of or anything, and some awesome products, herbally products from local herbal product makers from my area. That will be an awesome drawing because you'll be one of 12. You'll have 12, I don't know the percentage, but there'll only be 12 people entered in that one. Stay tuned for the answer to the plant at the beginning of next month's episode. And then at the end of next month's episode, we'll have a new quiz. So guess the plant and win. Guess the plant and win. Yeah, I gotta do something with all these buttons.
So let's switch over to herbs, since we are all about herbs here. What herbs would be good to have on hand in a situation such as what we went through with Hurricane Helene? And then what herb did you have on hand and or did you reach for first during this crisis? And I guess what herb did you wish you had, because it was so sudden that we just really had what we had on hand?
Well, I do want to say it's not exactly an herb, but there was definitely an extra importance around the morning coffee. And my neighbor upstairs and, me and my partner, and did you have the coffee? Who's got the water? And we came together because someone had coffee, someone had the gasoline, and we made it happen. And there was a ritual connection in the morning and a check-in around the coffee. And it felt crucial. And then also I love my reishi. That's my standby stable for my immune system, harmony, and just kind of grounding my spirit. And I take the real mushrooms, reishi. It's the best. And that's like a really important herb for me. And I also would say skullcap was probably something I was taking. And then I had this skin immune system reaction, and my housemate gave me a huge bottle of turmeric, kind of this like liquid turmeric that I was guzzling to bring down my inflammation and help with my skin infection. And that was very useful, and I was very grateful. So those are my herbs: turmeric, reishi, skullcap, and coffee.
Okay, so thinking about disaster preparedness for the future, I feel like I do just want to give a huge plug to water and keeping drinking water in your house. Before herbs, before anything, that is what I wish I had an excess of more than anything. You know, I think there's so many things you can take for granted when you just have it coming out of your tap or have daily access to being able to make herbal tea. But when you're short on water, are you making herbal tea? Are you using it for coffee? What are you using it for? So that's my first. It's a reminder to myself and to everyone else, just keep drinking water around. When it comes to herbs, I think I feel very blessed to have a home apothecary. I think like all of us here, we have homes full of medicines that we can be pulling from, and that's huge. That's huge. So I would say really start building your home apothecary up in whatever way you feel like serves you the most. Think about the most common conditions that you deal with on a daily or weekly basis. Do you get stomach aches? Do you tend towards panic attacks? Is it a racing mind and you can't go to sleep? Where do you go when you're stressed and when things are hard? Stock medicines for those things. I felt super lucky to have a big bottle of Milky Oats that I had made from some fresh oats that I got from Sass at Mystic Roots Farm. That's a big one that I was calling on, just that nourishing, nutritive support for my nervous system. It felt especially poignant at that time, especially knowing that Sass wound up losing her farm. Mystic Roots Farm was decimated by the storm. And I still have some of those Milky Oats, and I think they're some of the most special Milky Oats that I've ever had. So thank you to Sass for all the amazing work that you've done and that you do. For me personally, I need heart support. I need nervines, and that's on a daily basis, like outside of something stressful. I found myself really craving peach leaf. That's what I like for shock and for grief, and I didn't have any. I just didn't harvest any this summer. And so if that's your kind of thing, get some peach leaf for yourself. Hawthorne, definitely. Mimosa, these heart-centered plants that can really just help you ground down when you need it. I did wind up using this really beautiful essence. And I'm not a big flower essence person, but post-Hurricane Helene, I am now. I use them every single day, and I can't explain it other than that it's been working. And adding that layer to my daily protocol has just really been shifting some things that need moving. There's a local herbalist, Ash, of Ritual Botanica, and she makes this incredible essence. It's a magnolia essence, and it is so deep, so potent. I mean, I'm talking drop dose. You feel like from here to here, and I really called on that, so I was grateful to have it. I definitely leaned on scent and aroma a lot. Not being able to be making herbal tea as much and having that like extra level of sensory experience, I had just my stockpile of essential oils and whatever aromatherapy sprays I had around. Hydrosols were just feeling really good because they're water-based medicine. So just spritzing that on, that was doing something for me. Get your hydrosols.
I tried this. I listen to a podcast pretty regularly called, it's from Sage Apopum. What is it called again? Yes, Evolutionary Herbalism, and The Plant Path is the podcast. And he had actually recommended, this was a couple of years ago, I think, he recommended to all of his clients and students who were having anxiety issues to do a quart of oat straw a day. And I was like, I've probably done that with nettles and this and that, but I don't think I've done straight oat straw, for every single day. And I did for 2 weeks. And I think it's so important to do those geeky little side projects, you know, of like, what does it look like when I drink holy basil every day for this long or whatever. And it was so nourishing on such a deep level. And one of my favorites, and I'm still doing it now, I have other teas that of course I want to do, but at least twice a week I try to do the oat straw. But right around the storm time, I was really called to add goji berries and rose petals. And that was like mine. A lot of times I'll strain the tea. I'll do like the oats and rose and then strain that and add the goji berries to my strained tea, because then you have these little nuggets of yum at the end of it. I think that was the first thing I did, was just soothe, because I think we were all in shock, and not being connected was kind of a protector in some ways, right? We were kind of, it was scary. We were trying to find our people, but at the same time, the things that we had to face, I'm glad that they unfolded more slowly. I'm glad that the majority of us got a little bit of time to step into it, because, well, like I said, I'm still shocked. You know, I still go to places and go, what? Those were the big ones. No, that was the first one, I think. I'm also a Hawthorne person. I think anytime we go through grief and trauma, Hawthorne is just so fortifying, you know, and I'm a fan of making the Hawthorne conserve, where you take like cut and sifted rose hips and you do a strong decoction of Hawthorne, and then you pour it over that and hydrate it. Throw it in your Vitamix with like honey and lemon juice and a bit of cinnamon, and it is just like, I've had it for dessert before, right? But it's Hawthorne. So that's one of my favorite things to add. I can never say enough about Tulsi. I don't drink it every day, but Tulsi just is such a, and lemon balm too, are like the hearteners. And I think so many of us just needed that, like, just that little bit of heartening, and that little bit, because there were so many great things happening and people coming together, and you couldn't go by any intersection without people like free art, free food, free water, free everything, you know? And it was so sweet to see that come, but we still were walking around like zombies. We still were, most of us were going, I don't know what to do right now. I don't remember my dog's name, much less like what I should be, what the next right thing is. Honestly, for a time to come, I think we all kind of need to focus on those nervines and those adaptogens. It just seems to be the time we're in. Like I said, we just went from pandemic to like massive storm, and it's everywhere. It's like every day you wake up and it's like, hey, LA's on fire. Hey, tomorrow, 8 more killed in a flood in Kentucky. Like, it's just, we're there, with the climate issues, and we're gonna need some resiliency to, I think, to be effective in whatever we're going to do. So all those protective herbs like rose, and rose didn't come easily to me. I'm not much of a hearts and flowers type girl, but man, the medicine is so cooling and soothing. It's funny how people say you're either super attracted to the things that you need or super repelled by the things you need. And rose was one that originally I was like, not a fan, but that's been my favorite lately. I'm still drinking that every week. Is that with the oat straw? It's just such a moistening, delicious, and we need that. I certainly need that heart piece. It's hard to see the land and the people that you love just so damaged that you'll always carry it with you. It doesn't go away, like most heartbreaks, right? But I also wanted to say what I saw really quickly come out of it with no water. None of the usual access to things we had is all the terrific anti-infection type support. Whether it's yellow root growing by the creeks, or I'm an Usnea fan. We did a big blend up. That's one of my favorite recipe from Cascade Anderson Geller. That's an anti-infection tincture with like echinacea and Usnea and I think ginger and golden seal or Oregon grape. You can use either. Because that's what I was seeing, is within a couple of weeks, people were having all kinds of, side infections and topical infections and stuff. We didn't have clean water. We still, it's still kind of sketchy, right? We still don't have real water. So I think those things being protective and including those really terrific anti-infection plants that are just so, and the trees. I love balsam fir medicine as an oil. I agree with the hydrosols, just so much of those can really help keep us resilient, and those smells. And beauty is a nutrient. We forget that, right? Like in part of our medicine, when I look at a beautiful tea, that's part of the medicine, right? And so I think that we're all there now of needing that beauty and that kind of calm, and the little rituals of coffee, of having tea, and what a delight that is. It's like when you're like, I have a quart of water. Is it prudent to have coffee or have tea? Yeah, so I think those were my first quick things that kind of came up. And of course, I'm a body oiler through and through. I think if all you can choose is one oil, I'm a St. John's wort girl. There's just so many benefits to it as for nerve pain and for wounds and all of that stuff. But I feel it now. I'm like, I need to, St. John's wort oil, just my neck, that stress and that tension. And I have to shout out balsam fir. It's everywhere here, and everybody should be making that oil. It's delicious.
The first herb I reached for was Milky Oats, Avena sativa. One near and dear to my heart. It was people in North Carolina who were using it as cover crops, and I'd be like, what are you going to do with those Milky Oats that are forming? And Red Moon didn't have it as a product some years back. And I'm like, this was one when road rage hits me hard, and I have it in my side pocket in my car. I take a little, it works effectively immediately to loosen my shoulders, take the tension out of my neck, and just nourish the nervous system. So this was one I reached for. I don't normally just sit around sniffing essential oils, but that was something that I did do. I, smelt some eucalyptus and peppermint and those sort of things to kind of like wake up brain. And then I took the time of a ritual of tea too. I think because we had more time on our hands for a few days there, I was like making myself a cup of tea. So it was back to the nettles that I love, or just oat straw. So those were what I reached for. The things that would be good to have on hand that I can think of are the electrolytes have been handy, even making your own. Element donated to us, thank you so much. It's got sodium, potassium, and magnesium in it. But even if you make your own thing of lemon, water, salt, and a sweetener of your choice, like maple syrup or stevia, I think during this time I always kind of panicked, so it was really good to just be like, wait, take a second and hydrate. And the other thing I noticed, like you were saying, you were down to like a quart. I was rationing my water, even though I could go get it, like drive to get some. But then you're like, okay, do I have enough gas? Because the first few days, the gas stations were out of gas, or it was kind of nuts. But if I was doing a go bag or a prepper bag, right, if I had to do it all over again, I would definitely go ahead and have the extracts I prefer the most. Yarrow, which is kind of, mouth rinse, ailments with food or bad water, a little yarrow powder as a styptic to kind of stop bleeding, or cinnamon, and then a little oil and a little salve to put on any scratches as you're working around fire or brush. Some people got into poison ivy, so my favorite is jewelweed and plantain in a little gel or a little cooling spray, either with vinegar. And then just echinacea, golden seal. They can be separate for different things, like an osha root is another one that I like to have on hand for reactions. But yarrow can do a lot of that for me as far as herbs go. And then it would have just poured more water up and probably had more, shelf-stable stuff. Easy open, shelf-stable food. Dried rice, dried beans, handy.
We lost a ton of trees to Helene. And how can we creatively repurpose trees and other natural resources after a massive storm, including using methods like shiitake inoculation, and or how could we use bioremediation to help heal the land, even if it's like on a small scale, like your backyard or something, maybe.
So I feel like the first layer of this process, I know for me personally, I can only just assume that would be true for others, is a healing process. I think, like Melissa was saying, driving around looking at communities is a shock. Driving around looking at your favorite place in nature and patch of forest, swath of forest, favorite trail, like it's not the same, and it won't be for like 125 years. We lost a lot of the Appalachian forest in the beginning of the 1900s when there was clear cut, and in a lot of areas it's like a clear cut now. And that feels really devastating for me and my nervous system, and heartbreaking. So I feel like for me this spring, as new life emerges, I'm going to be doing some healing with the forest that I think just is going to look like listening, like going to the land, sitting, laying on the earth, and forming a connection and opening up a portal of communication. I don't know what will happen from that, but I know that that's going to be a process, I think, that will lead to what you would call remediation and healing. And we think that the trees are resources in so many different ways. Like they're resources as wood and, economics, but it's a resource as a emotional and spiritual sanctuary. And we have lost that resource. We've lost a large amount of it. So reorienting, and also in that process, I feel like zooming out is a really good practice, because devastation and just change is a part of life, and there's always been floods and there's always been cataclysms, whether man-made or natural, that come through, and we carry on. And so to zoom out and take that broader perspective of life, always changing, can be healing. And then the perspective of forests changing, if you learn a little bit about forest ecology, there can be, and this has been helpful for me, just to accept and know that there's a new stage that we're going to be part of. We were experiencing another stage, and that seemed like permanent, but nothing's permanent. Now we're at a new stage, and it's the early stage of the forest. And it's not actually dead and gone. We're going to see exciting things in that. We're going to feel new types of plants in new places. It won't be like our same place where we went to harvest pedicularis. Wherever we tend to find the herbs that we tend to find, it's going to be different. So there can be some opening of our heart around that shift. And mushrooms and these hardwoods, that's going to be a really beautiful symbiotic partnership and support. There's going to be a lot more mushrooms, and whether it's intentional inoculation or natural inoculation, nature is good at doing that on its own, and I think it's going to be happening. So we can support that even further. And for bioremediation, I've been looking into zeolite and humic and fulvic acids. They have a lot of power in both remediating our bodies, to be taking them internally because of all of the amount of environmental toxins we get exposed to, and it's heightened during these kinds of experiences with our water being contaminated and air. And then that also, those substances can support the healing of water systems and the earth, so we can get our gardens and lands healed. And it feels like insurmountable, but it is possible, and the only way to get there is to begin the process and to educate and learn and come together and share the resources of that knowledge.
I absolutely agree with all of that, and I think that I know what I've learned over years of gardening and being here in the woods and gathering plants is that we as humans are so short-sighted. And I can say I'm never not going to be heartbroken looking at these huge, beautiful oaks, which are like the most revered tree of the Cherokee, just gone, just down. And then the other part of me thinks, what a wonderful opportunity to utilize that medicine. If you've ever harvested oak, it's one of the best astringents, right? A lot of people even claim it can hold, if you powder it and put it in your gums, it can hold loose teeth as people age and their teeth loosen. It's a wonderful astringent which helps tone and tighten tissue. And it's hard to harvest, right? I go out after storms because the branches are way up there. I'm too old and fat to climb a 50-foot, right? Or 60-foot or whatever tree. So in some realm, here is all this. And we know that, like, with Myco-Remediation or, doing any kind of shiitake logs or oyster or whatever, because as soon as a tree goes down, it starts being inoculated, just like a piece of fruit or anything else. So we have such an opportunity to work with this medicine. And I know some herbalists even say that, like, go make body oil out of the trees that are in your yard. Those are your guardians. Those are your family, right? That's who you're living with every day, and you're exchanging oxygen and pee and all the things that we, exchange. And so I think it's a great opportunity in that way. And I try to remember that nature is resilient. That's not like sugarcoating the damage we are doing as humans, but nature really is resilient. And so for me, going out and listening and planting the trees and looking into Myco-Remediation, how can we, I think our stream banks are going to need a lot of medicine. And the margins, most like permaculture herbalists will tell you, look to the margins in between the garden and the woods, right? That's where so much medicine is going to grow. Even the old grannies here, when they first started kind of moving closer and less rurally, every year they went out with their wheelbarrows and dug up dirt because they knew you had to have woods dirt if you were going to grow anything of value, of consequence, right? So inoculating these grounds with other, earth, I think is just super smart to do. And then there's, tons of, you can get geeky and biochar and things like that. But I think there's a lot of work for us to do. Yeah.
So now that it's been like a few months since Helene, what would you say has changed, shifted everyone's, I guess, perspective on what we all went through?
So yeah, this new phase where you can kind of exist not with a constant reminder of what's happened it's a nice new phase to get to. And I also agree that what happened around the community connection and the depth of human resources that we were forced to lean into really showed all of us that the greatest resource was each other in our community and the power of humans coming together, because massive things happened. And it's actually a greater power than the internet, than government organizations. It's way more powerful. And, we did slip back into regular life a bit. And while there's one part comfort to that, there's really, for me personally, a desire to take my lessons and takeaways to explore how to live more earth-based, more community-based, and be a part of something like the Appalachian Herb Collective. That's been a huge thing for me, to tap back into that energy of community work. We're here for each other. What do you need? And, and other people asking you or asking me, what do I need? And that's humanity. And that's what I think we've been missing in our era of technology, and the ability to just sink back behind a screen really takes away what it means to be alive and to have true connection. So, I feel like that's slipped away, and I'm exploring how to make changes to keep that alive. And like mycelium, you mentioned how powerful and how quick the mushrooms grow back because they have that mycelium network. So that network is how we can keep each other strong.
So we're going to wrap up. I want to thank so much our lovely panel from the Appalachian Herb Collective for being here today. You guys are amazing.
Say it again.
You guys are amazing. Yes, it is an amazing thing that has happened, and I as well want it to continue. It's just wonderful to be able to walk in a room and, be able to hang out and talk herbs for like a couple hours. I'd like everyone to just maybe say where we can find you on the web individually. And we're also going to thank some sponsors of the collective. The collective makes some of the medicine, but a lot of the medicine has been donated.
You can find me if you want to do an herbal consultation. I have classes. I'm offering more local things, and that's been a shift since the storm. My website is ChristinaBertelli.com, and I also have an Instagram, which is @FemBotanica. That's FEMME, Botanica. Thanks.
So AHC, as we lovingly call the Appalachian Herb Collective, things have shifted so much over these last 5 months. We have a core group of organizers who perhaps could be lovingly known as an informal board of directors. And I do just want to give a really big shout out to all of them. Real quick, just sending my love out to Lupo of Twin Star Herb School and Apothecary, Janelle of Twin Flower Botanicals, Lori of Sister of Mother Earth. Janelle and Lori have been holding down the Myco Herb Collective, a branch of AHC. Corey Pine and Eliza Rose. Corey Pine, of course, of Pines Herbals and Blue Ridge School of Herbal Medicine. Kat of Herbalacha, holding it down in Eastern Tennessee. We are so grateful for her. Rebecca of Orem Apotheca. Jeannie Dunn of Red Moon Herbs, who never stops giving. That woman is amazing. And myself, Devin of Apothecary. So, that's the core group that's meeting behind the scenes. And then we have all the people who are here in the flesh doing the work. Thank you to the co-op for hosting us. Huge thank you to all of our sponsors. We put out a call for donations and have been receiving medicine from all across the country. It's been really inspiring. And as time goes on, donations start to slow down. We have started more of our own internal medicine making efforts. So folks who come to our events, you'll see more of AHC labels on things. And also, it is never too late to donate. So we do accept ongoing product donations. There's information about that on our website and Instagram, that website being AppalachianHerbCollective.net. And our Instagram is @Appalachian Herb Collective. We also have opened up a fundraiser for fiscal funding for our projects. We're holding down multiple hubs throughout the region, and folks need to pay rent. We've all been doing a lot of this just kind of as a heart-centered project, and to keep this going, we do need support. So, if you're able, if you know someone who's able, if you are interested in supporting our region, yet don't know exactly where to go or how to do that, please feel free to consider us for that. We really welcome all the assistance. And so a huge thank you to our sponsors, amazing people who have been donating so much for the last few months. Banyan Botanicals, Traditional Medicinals, Namex Real Mushrooms, Yogi Tea, Golden Needle, Energique, Woodland Essences, FES, Herb Farm, Gaia Herbs. We love our local big herb companies. Gaia Herbs. Wish Garden, Herbal Revolution, Lush Cosmetics, Now Essential Oils, Bellfire's Medicine Woods, Frontier. Gosh, the list honestly goes on and on and on. So thank you to everybody who's given, great or small. We've had so many local herbalists show up here and really just be like, hey, I harvested some extra chaga this year. Can you use this for medicine making? And I've been making a lot of lip balm. Do you think folks could use this? So thank you. thank you to everybody who's come to our events and continues to be a part of this beautiful, beautiful thing that we are continuing to create.
With the Appalachian Herbal Collective, we are evolving, and who knows what tomorrow or 5 months from now looks like, because it has kind of tapered out, and some folks couldn't get to the herbal clinics that we did pop up in different cities. But there have been volunteers who will go out and actually deliver to areas where folks are still without homes. They might be in hot tents or used RVs or cohabitating with friends. So we do ask for more volunteers. So if you want to follow AppalachianHerbCollective.com or Madco Herb Collective volunteer list, we're here to gather more volunteers. Don't feel shy to come to a pop-up, whether you're receiving or giving. We've had folks just step in and say, how can I help? And we just become this little family together, and it's really beautiful to watch. And if you're in the Western North Carolina and you need us to come to you, we can do an herbal pop-up here and there. So thank you. It's been amazing.
And beyond our wonderful sponsors and all of the folks who show up here, there are other ways to support Appalachian Herb Collective. Anima Mundi, which is a herb company out of Brooklyn, has done a collaboration with Rising Appalachia, which I know a lot of y'all will recognize, and a percentage of all of those products goes to the AHC directly. So support them. Great products.
All right. So again, thank you, everybody. Hopefully we will do more of these panels, maybe on different subjects. I don't know. This is new. I am Jennifer. Please also check out our podcast, Stories from the Earth. We are on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We are on Instagram. All the links will be in the description. If you'd like to support the podcast, we are on Patreon. Yeah, we'll chat at you later. Bye.